maybe a fourth. They're coming at him, he's been 6 and 7. Tom Trbojevic has been an 8.
Oh, wow.
No.
Here we are, round 9, SuperCoach365 podcast. Ryan Selvage and Tommy Hudson back with you to talk, well, big team list Tuesday. Probably the biggest one since round 1, in fact. And Tommy, the headline man, Tommy Turbo himself, is back. Probably the biggest news, but not the only big news today.
Yeah, g'day, mate. It's big news today, as we thought with Tommy Turbo returning. He's probably still hard to get in your side, but he's big for the game and big for rugby league in general, really. It's getting to that tricky part of the year. I think the hardest part of SuperCoach, just approaching the first bye in Origin. It's all systems go trying to plan for that.
Absolutely. Of course, some of that other news we talk about, one of the other big names from season 2021, Brian To'o is back for the Penrith Panthers, but not in his familiar number 2 or number 5. He's in the extended reserves. This Panthers number 24. It's seen some names this year: Nathan Cleary, James Fisher-Harris, and now the Origin winger.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, isn't it, for super coaches? I'm sure Ivan Cleary knows what's happening already and he's keeping everyone guessing, but it's tough to plan your team when you've got someone the caliber of Brian To'o sitting on your bench on the extended reserve. So, look, I don't know. Why would you name him if you're not going to play him? I guess we'll find out on Thursday or Friday, won't we?
Yeah, we will, and it's frustrating again. We'll talk about that in our trading places and plenty of questions about what to do with Taylan May this week on the back of that news. We'll get to that very, very soon, of course. Before we do, I'm going to chat some round 8 results, and one of those surprise results of last week again. It seems like we say this every week, but the Roosters underperforming again, a shock loss this time to the Bulldogs. We said this time last week that they're struggling. They're struggling again. Where are they at? Can we take them seriously? Are they a chance of missing the top 8 entirely?
Well, honestly, the last 3 weeks, I've just thought every week they're going to click, and then they can't even beat the Dogs last week. Really disappointing performance. I will say the Dogs really dug in the second half to try and get that win, but still, it's not the Roosters we know and that we've seen for the past few years. So, look, it's another chance this week at home to the Gold Coast. So I think it's in Mackay, but I don't know. I think my patience has run out trying to bet on them with the line and things like that.
Frustrating watch. That word frustrating, we've said it a couple of times about the Roosters, and particularly James Tedesco. I guess he was a shining light, particularly for you. I know you've traded him out, traded him back in a couple of times this season. You've stuck with him and reaping some rewards, I guess, last week. So that's a positive.
Yeah, he's been their best player the last couple of weeks. I think he ran for nearly 300 metres on Saturday against the Dogs. So he's playing really well and, justifying me getting him back in, I guess.
Now, before we recap our personal results of last week, let's throw this up, of course. If you're watching us on the YouTube tonight, you'll see this on your screens now. Round 8 recap, there it is for you, some of the results from last week. Of course, it kicked off last Thursday night. The Broncos, another shock result over the Sharks, 16 points to 7. The Panthers, they struggled their way to a win against the Titans. South Sydney had it much easier against the 12-man Manly side, 40 points to 22. The Warriors snuck home over the Raiders, another come-from-behind win, or should I say another fade-out from the Canberra Raiders, 21 points to 20. Tommy, I want to get your thoughts on this one because I know you saw the back end of that game, and what did you make of the Raiders' finish to that game?
Yeah, really disappointing. We just don't seem to have any idea how to close out games, and that's been the case for a long time now. And we have rookie half in Brad Schneider, and he seems to be struggling with that task, so it is disappointing. It was a pretty average game from all reports too, I have to say. After that, we saw the game we just mentioned, the Doggies beating the Roosters 16 points to 12. It's great signs on the sideline there with Trent Barrett celebrating with the crowd sort of thing after the game. I thought that was great. I'd say the biggest upset of the weekend, or at least the most upsetting scoreline, 35 points to 4, the Cowboys beat the Eels. You didn't see this one coming, did you?
No, we didn't. In fact, we thought there'd be points. I think they said we'd go over the 40.5. We didn't quite get there at the 39. But again, in saying that, I never thought the Cowboys would score 35 of them. And I guess on the back of the move from Dylan Brown from the 6 out to the centre wing, just not paying dividends, and that's changed this week. We'll get to Para's team lists for round 9 soon. Another big result for the Melbourne Storm, backing up their 70 points they scored against the Warriors with another 50 against the Knights. The Knights in all sorts up there at Newcastle. And then again, a much tighter fixture to end the week, and probably a scrappy game of sorts, and entertaining last 10 minutes. The Dragons just a little bit too good for the West Tigers.
Yeah, it seemed like a real war of attrition this game. Both sides were desperate not to lose, and the Dragons did enough to get the win, and they go right into the cauldron this week to face Melbourne.
Now let's throw up on your screens here now. Of course, I keep saying on your screens. If you are listening to us on your podcast feeds, you can find us over at YouTube. Just search SuperCoach365. That's where you'll get us there. On your screens here now, you'll see our personal scores from last week. Tommy, you went quite well. 1,228, and you just found some green arrows, and I'll let you do the honours with your own rank, mate, but just soaring up inside the top 1,000.
Yeah, I didn't think it was the best week, but I was happy to wake up Monday morning and see that I was 575 overall. So that's really good, probably the highest I've been that I can remember. So as I said earlier, though, it's coming into that tricky period where you've got to start planning for a few problem rounds. So it's going to be hard trying to balance that and also get some good scores along the way.
Yeah, we'll do that juggling act this week. We'll do it for the next 3 or 4 weeks before Origin, that bye-affected round 13 as well. Myself, 1,192 in round 8, a top 8% score, and that's also bumped me up into top 8% overall. So it was a slow start to the year, particularly for me, not so much for you. You've found your way into the top 1,000, and you'll be hoping to hang on to that in the coming weeks.
That's the aim, but yeah, it's going to be tricky. I think trying to plan for this bye as well as round 17, probably trying to work out your tactics if you want to target 13 or 17 or both. I don't know. That's going to make or break your season.
Certainly the period that sorts out the good from the bad, doesn't it? Let's get into this now, of course. Our group ladder, of course, for those who are playing along at home, the chance to win $500 courtesy of Top Tippers. There it is on your screens, results from last week. And still it is, I think it's Troy Roosters pack showing the way. A big score. I think he's up to second overall now, that reads. So Troy doing good things, and plenty of quality in this group along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Very high quality comp. Troy, like you said there, second overall. I think I'm only 56 overall, and there's 1,000 people in it. So with my overall rank, you'd expect me to be higher. So it shows that our league is our group is very well versed in SuperCoach, and our fans are obviously very educated. So well done to everybody.
Yeah, never too late to join. 576 855 $500, of course, courtesy of Top Tippers. We say it every week. Never too late. The only thing you have to do to be eligible to win that prize, of course, is to follow us, subscribe to us across the socials or on YouTube as well. Tommy, before we get into round number 9, we do it every week, and it's a point which really we look forward to. I know so much rather the good rather than the bad and the ugly, but we'll do it here now. The good, the bad, and the ugly from round number 8. I'll kick us off here with a bit of the good from last week, and there wasn't really too much good. There wasn't really too much bad. A little bit indifferent last week, of course, given those scores were much of a muchness across many of your leagues and such. But the good for mine, Pappenhausen v Cleary in terms of captaincy choices. I got that one right again. Maybe a little bit lucky with Pappenhausen. Just seemed to find some extra points late on Sunday night and pushed him up over the 100.
Yeah, I agree with your overall sentiment. It was one of those weeks where there wasn't a big disparity in top to bottom from the scoring point of view. There wasn't any massive scores. And there wasn't any people that went absolutely awful either. So, but yeah, I am surprised Pappenhausen did get 107. We might talk about that a bit more later. My good, probably Cody Walker, bringing him in. The timing I did. I was very lucky with the send-off that Manly had, that the Rabbitohs kind of were given that game, you'd have to say. But yeah, Walker ended up getting 99. So that was good timing for me.
Let's talk a bit of the bad. For me personally, Taylan May, Isaac Tungo, not the scores we were after against the Titans. We didn't expect a blowout like a 50-2 we saw with the Storm and the Knights. I would have thought Penrith would have scored more than 18 points themselves. And on the back of that, these two youngsters, they just didn't find their way into the game like they have in previous weeks. And now they've got high break-evens, a tough run. And, of course, Brian To'o is just lurking there in jersey 24. So it doesn't get any easier for those two.
Yeah, I have the similar problem as you. I don't know how to play these two. I feel like one of them may drop out, probably Taylan May, but we'll have to wait and see. And unfortunately, we probably won't know till later this week with the way the team is named for Penrith. My bad would be Joey Manu. He's up and down like a yo-yo. He gets a 100-run week, and then last week against the Dogs, I think he touched the ball 5 times. So that's really not what you want from a player worth $635,000 on SuperCoach. He only got 27, so hopefully he can bounce back this week.
We saw that in the start of the season, didn't we, with particularly Katoni Staggs. Similar type of players, they have these big breakout games, but then they do have the 20s, the 30s as well to go with it. It is frustrating. But as we've seen with Katoni, it is well worth the hold. And I think in previous years, we've seen Joey Manu come into his own across the origin period, Roosters playing round 13 as well. So there are some good things to come from Joey, we're hoping. You are anyway, as an owner. And my ugly for this week, it has to be Payne Haas in a week where there wasn't really too many bad things or, bad implications that go beyond the round itself. Payne Haas is probably one of them. Played injured. We thought he came into the game with an injury. Picked up, I guess he redid the same shoulder complaint, didn't he? And then he went off early, scored 45 something or close to that many points. And then now he's not playing this week. So it just compounded the injury. And that's my ugly for this week.
Yeah, disappointing for owners. Hopefully it's only a week or two injury, but then you do have Origin looming and he'll obviously be a part of that. My ugly is similar. It's another injury. David Fafita, he went off halfway through that game. He started from the bench as well, so it was never going to be pretty against the Panthers the other night. He only got 25 from memory, and he's out for a month, so he pretty much has to go now.
And I know from speaking to you and some other owners and some other people playing SuperCoach in group chats and such that there was that decision pre-game. Do we trade Fafita before he plays off the bench? Do we keep him? I'm not saying you got it wrong, but you certainly, went one way and now you have to trade him out this week. So a little bit more ugly as it was, or what it would have been if you traded him out before that. Of course, that wraps us up for the good, bad and ugly. Before we get into our round 9, we'll plug it one more time. Follow us on the socials, subscribe on YouTube. It's SuperCoach365. And on the podcast as well, if you are listening on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get yours, please give us a 5-star review, a thumbs up, or whatever it may be. And of course, YouTube, you'll find us on there, SuperCoach365. Subscribe, thumbs up, get back to us in the comments as well. We do love having a chat with all of our viewers. Tommy, let's talk some round 9 footy. And this one here, get us underway. Thursday night footy, the Adam Reynolds Cup. This time, the first time he gets to go up against his old mob. Of course, he was missing from the opening round. I think it was with COVID or a hamstring complaint in the end, calf tightness, old man's injury, whatever it was. But he's there this Thursday night, and the Broncos coming off a big win over the Sharks, big in the sense that it was not really predicted. They'll be looking to make it 2 in a row.
It certainly will, and it'll be great to see Reynolds go up against his former club. How much the Rabbitohs would love to have a 10-year halfback at the moment like Reynolds. Yeah. They could have had him. It's surprising what they did, and they kind of eating their words at the moment. Probably the biggest news here is Payne Haas, as we've already covered, and I think that really hurts their chances here. If he was playing, I'd almost think they could beat South, but without him and also Kurt Capewell, it does make it tough for them.
It does. Some good news, though, for the Broncos. Paddy Carrigan's back. He's going to play in jersey 10, which sees Hetherington still playing out of the lock position. For Souths, in terms of their SuperCoach relevant players, probably the big name there is Tass, who retains his spot in the jersey number 3, so expecting him to line up on the left side. We saw this with Talakai, didn't we, last week, Tommy? A popular trade-in, Isaiah Tass will be, like Talakai in round 8, coming up against Katoni Staggs. Yes, a low break-even, but we're not expecting a big score like we saw from Tass against Manly last week.
No, probably not. I didn't even know if he'd get picked really with Tane Milne returning, but he's won the battle to the centres, we think. So he'll no doubt be very popular at the rock bottom price. I think his break-even's well into the negatives. So, I couldn't begrudge anyone for picking him up. You'd almost have to in a way. I'd say a big takeout from this game and takeout from last week, as I said earlier, Cody Walker. He's hitting form. 99 last week. Souths have a great run, as we keep mentioning. It still continues throughout the bye rounds. And his break-even is just -8 this week. So certainly not too late to get involved with him, I don't think.
Yep. As you say there are some options there. Walker, Johnston, if you're playing that way, centre wings, you may not be. Tass is probably the way you go. Blake Taff, Lachlan Ilias. You're not trading Ilias in, but you might hold him this week, given what we've seen the last couple of weeks. His break-even is still hovering around the mid-30s. Just on this game, of course, South Sydney's firm favourites here in the market with topsport.com.au. $1.25 head-to-head. The Broncos, $4.10. I think there's a bit of value there with the Broncos at the head-to-head. The line, plus 12.5. It looks big, but when you take out those names up front, Haas and Capewell, you can sort of see why that line is getting out beyond 2 tries. Yeah,
when I first saw the market, I was with you. I thought Brisbane maybe at the plus, but then I remembered the Haas injury, and I just think he is so vital to their forward pack that it could be a bit of an out. Just on Haas, I think you are an owner.
Mm-hmm.
What is your thought process in terms of keeping or selling? Don't give away if you don't want what you're doing, but just what's the logic there, do you think?
As we always do, we'll just keep our trades up our sleeve until our trading places segment at the back end. But I said here in the run sheet, let's chat the pros and cons of both of those options. Obviously, the pro in selling him is you free up 600 plus, $630,000, close enough. You can easily go down to a Taumalolo. I say sideways to a Twal because I think there's a bit of cash there to make with Twal, but he's coming off the bench still, and you took Kamanu back. We'll get to the Tigers soon. Isaiah Papali'i, maybe you're reaching up to Papali'i, doesn't play 13. That's a concern for the Eels. So there are both pros and cons, and maybe I'll expand upon this a little bit more at the back end of the podcast. Before we move on, as we always do, we'll talk some try scorers. I think you tipped in Katoni Stacks last week for a try up against Talakai. He had his number there. Who can you give us this week? And Alex Johnston, as he always is, the firm favourite at $1.68.
Yeah, I probably think just with the Haas injury, it might be maybe South could run away with this. Actually, they might have played themselves into a bit of form last week, being gifted that win. So yeah, possibly Johnston, or will Tass will be left centre, so perhaps him as well. $2.50, not a bad price.
Yeah, I think we lacking the Broncos middles. There could be something up the middle again. So Cam Murray, $4.40, Damien Cook, $4.40, anytime try scorers. Probably a little bit of value there. If you can see them making some way against the tiring Brisbane pack. Of course, how often do you see it? Payne Haas just cleaning up the scraps and stopping a try or stopping a kick, whatever it may be. So they're going to miss him this week on both sides of the footy. Anything else there that we should be looking at SuperCoach-wise? I know that, Carrigan's back. He scored strongly at the start of the year. He's moved to lock here, so maybe not. Moved from lock to prop, so his minutes are certainly a watch. But one to watch if Haas is out for an extended time, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. I know you were a fan of him at the start of the year, and you picked him up in our draft comp, and I'm sure you'd be happy to see his name back on the team sheet. So yeah, in Haas's absence, I'm sure we'll be picking up some decent scores.
Let's move on. Friday, an early game here, the Raiders and the Bulldogs. I don't know what to expect from this. I seem to say that every week about these two sides. The Raiders, much like the Warriors, much like the Roosters, you think they're just going to click into gear and find something. They're yet to find anything, really. And the Bulldogs, I think they're one team that just plays with heart, no matter if they're at the depths of the ladder in 16th or they're fighting their way on the cusp of, contending for a top 8 spot. They're always going to play with energy and enthusiasm, the Bulldogs, and that could just get them over the Raiders in this one, I think.
Yep, they're always going to play with heart, like you say there, and I don't think there's a guarantee we always will at the moment, to be honest. We really seem to just fall in and out of games every week, which is disappointing as a fan. But a few changes this week. CNK's back in the fullback role. I don't think he's been banging the door down to get back in the side, but I think Ricky's just out of answers, really. So he's back. Xavier Savage is out. Jared Croker's back, which is great, I guess, for Raiders fans, but hopefully he can be back to some fitness. But the big issue for us is Jack White, and head and shoulders our best player. He's out for 2 weeks, so it makes it pretty tough. I almost think the Dogs can beat us here.
Yeah, tight going in the betting with topsport.com.au. $1.86 the Raiders, $1.95 the Bulldogs. The line just +1 to the Doggies, $1.90, so not getting much there. You mentioned White in there. He really is the heart and soul, isn't he? And not only is the general in terms of getting them to a point on the field and setting up that left side attack, he has been such a running and such a strong influence with the ball in hand himself. They're going to miss that because, going one way, it's going to be easy to read now with White not there.
Yeah, well, he was our only real source of points, and now we've got, Schneider and Frawley in the halves. So, we'll struggle to score 2 tries, I think. One thing with Croker coming back, if you still own Schneider, I'd say he's going to lose the goal kicking now. Yep. So that is another reason possibly to get rid of him. On the Dogs, Josh Jackson returns from COVID. He's been playing pretty well, and it pushes Max King to the bench. Possibly time to get rid of people like Max King.
Yeah, I mean, he's still doing a job. Like, if you're happy to cop a 45 and the small price rise, then maybe. But again, yeah, as you say there, I think the Dogs play round 13. That's probably his saving grace at the moment for Max King. Yeah. Just on the Doggies, we spoke of that good win last week. It's been such a long time between wins back to back for the Dogs. If I'm reading this right, which we don't always do, but I don't think they've won 2 games in a row since round 22 and 23 in 2019 by the time they kick off on Friday. That'll be 988 days.
It does surprise me the number, but they've been terrible for a few seasons. But that is an amazing stat, and they won't get many better chances, I wouldn't think, going to play a really weakened Canberra who are truly out of form. I think maybe the unders here is the go. We can't score points. The Dogs don't score many. 38.5, I'd be hard-pressed to see it getting to that much.
If Aaron Schopp is on the right side, which I think he is, he'll be running at Croker, will he? No, he's left side, isn't he? He's defending Manu last week.
I think he's left.
All right, whoever the Bulldogs' right centre is, I'm liking them anytime try scorer. I think it'll be Avarillo will it this week, $3.70. Anyway, take your pick probably, because Tomoko, as good as he is with the ball, he's probably not the best defender either. $3.70 for Avarillo anytime, $3.85 for Aaron Schopp. So a bit of value there. That was the criticism of Croker, wasn't it? Why he found his way out of first grade. Just a little bit slow. His contact wasn't as good first up and just beaten too many times one-on-one.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't mind the shout by you at all. He's a decent attacking centre, and if he is running at Avarillo, he might have some joy there. But yeah, I wouldn't play try scorers personally this game. I just can't see many points. It'll be desperate, but I don't know how it's going to end up really.
Expecting a tight one there, so maybe we are in this game as well. The Panthers and the Eels. Panthers just a little bit out of sorts last week, but the class prevailed. 18 points to 4 victors in the end. Didn't cover the line, so one of our best bets didn't get up last week. But the Eels, they're starting to come into that tricky period now. Their draw gets a little bit more difficult in the next couple of weeks. So players like Brown and Moses, Gutherson even, who've had success at the start of the year. If you haven't moved them on already, maybe you're thinking of doing so now.
Yeah, it was a pretty worrying performance the other night from the Eels. It might have just been one of those games that got away from them in the Darwin heat, but still wasn't great to see. The Panthers, I know it's a cliche, but winning ugly shows that you're a good team. I think they just won ugly. They weren't great, but they still won 13 plus away from home, 8 in a row, shooting for 9. They're just unbelievable.
I think we said on our captain's call last Wednesday night, we looked through the numbers, went through Nathan Cleary's try-scoring history. I said, I think maybe twice in his career he went more than 8 games without a try. Last week was the 8th game in that 8-game run, and sure enough, he scores a try. So if you found him topsport.com.au, anytime try scorer, I think he was about $2.80, $3 maybe. So a bit of a value there. Just talking of try scorers, of course, the big news on this game, Taylan May and Charlie Staines, of course. We've got in here in inverted commas. They retain their wing spots, waiting that news of Brian To'o's fitness. Speaking of the reinforcements coming back for the Panthers, like they need any help, Moses Leota, again, one of their starting props, he looks to make his way back from an injury in this game as well.
Yeah, some potential big-ins for the Western Sydney derby. Just on Brian To'o, firstly, do you think he's going to play? And who does he come in for? I don't think Staines has been great this year. I don't think he's ever been great for Penrith, really. But, he has held down that right wing for a long time. Taylan May has been good, but I'd have to say him and Tago have maybe regressed a little bit the past few weeks with some errors. So, I don't know. Which way do you think Ivan would go?
Yeah, maybe not the worst time to give Taylan May a rest. You get to bring back an Origin player, and Charlie Staines, he's played some big games as well. So, it is a luxury to have them both. To'o can play right side. We know that. He played there in a grand final against the Storm in 2020. They can move Crichton if need be. I don't think they will. Will Brian play? If I had to make a decision today, I'd probably say yes. We know he comes back from injury early. He'd be wanting to play this game. Who will make way? Who do I think? I think it's probably May. I know Staines has had one bad error that I can remember, that game against the Bulldogs at Combank. He dropped the ball line wide open, but other than that, really, hasn't set a foot wrong. And I think his involvements have even gone up in recent weeks. He's running the ball. He's getting through some of those hit-ups that he just didn't do in years gone by. So I think Staines has been put on notice by how good Taylan May was when he burst onto the scene and maybe lifted his own game. That can only be good things for Penrith.
Yeah, and it will be probably the biggest decision of the weekend, won't it? If he does play and May's out, May's break-even's very high. He's 520K, so he'd be an easy person to move on. But then he does play around 13, so they're all things you have to weigh up. It is tricky. who are you going with in this game? I think Penrith win, but I have to say the line, as I just loaded it now, 12 and a half. I think that's a little bit harsh. I think Parramatta will bounce back in this derby.
It's massive, really. 12 and a half. It's going to be nighttime footy. Of course, this on Friday night. Penrith, it's this time of year, things start to get a little bit cold out the foot of the mountains way. The field will be slippery as well. And I think last year they went within a penalty goal of actually knocking the Panthers off, or at least sending the game to Golden Point. Actually, I think the game did go into Golden Point. Burton kicked a field goal. Moses missed a penalty goal to win it in regulation. So we know they can get close to the Eels. They want to bounce back, I should say, after that big loss. $1.23 the Panthers head-to-head. Parramatta $4.20. You've already mentioned the line there. If I'm playing this game, I'm probably backing the Eels at the line, but not with a great deal of confidence all the same.
And then if we're doing that, you almost have to back the unders because Penrith don't let in points, really. They'll let in 2 tries max. Yeah. It's all going to be about if Parramatta can defend Penrith. And I think after letting in 35 last week, they'll be really focusing on defence. And just remember back to that week 2 semi-final last year, I think it was 6-4, these two teams in one of the great games of 2021. So hopefully we see something similar.
Just to give you an indication, Taylan May the last couple of weeks, topsport.com.au, he's been about $1.40 to score a try. This week just wound out a little bit. Still odds on $1.80 to find a 4-pointer, but just shows you that we're expecting less points. So play with that one the way you will. News for Parramatta, of course, we've already said it, but Dylan Brown back to his regular 5/8 role and Tommy Opicic back in the centre wing role. So could be a good thing there for Parramatta Eels, getting back to some sense of normality. And Sean Russell, one to watch in jersey number 24 for the Eels as well. He had a great start to the year, but been out injured ever since.
Yeah, good to see him back. He was a popular GP early doors and maybe one for draft competitions in the next few weeks. But yeah, good to see Dylan Brown back in the 6. Really strange that he wasn't there the last couple of weeks. And I guess as soon as they lost, it was going to be the big talking point. Why are you picking your son at 5/8? So anyway, it's back to normal now, thankfully.
Said that with Billy Walters at the start of the year as well. Anyway, all things come back around. Speaking of things coming back around, how good it will be to see Tommy Turbo back out in force for the Sea Eagles this week. They start firm favourites here against the West Tigers. This one at the old Brookie Oval. $1.18, the Sea Eagles, $4.90 outside as the West Tigers. They haven't been horrible, the Tigers. In fact, they were shooting for 3 in a row last week. Their attack was slightly below where it needed to be against the Dragons, and they're going to need it to be every bit where they need it to be, I should say, this week against the Sea Eagles, because this team looks like it's ready to break free of the shackles. 3 p.m. Saturday afternoon, Tommy Turbo could put on a show.
It's got every ingredient of a big score, doesn't it? The sun's shining down at 4 Points Park on Saturday afternoon. It should be good. Good for owners of Manly players, I would think. Tigers have a few out as well. Luciano Lua and David Nofaluma both not playing here. So that's 2 of their better players out. It looks an uphill task, and Tommy Trbojevic returning, that doesn't just help him, obviously. It helps players like Christian Tuipulotu and Ruben Garrick, who will be on the end of some of his greatness.
Question for you on notice, and I don't know if you know the answer, but will Garrick go back to that right wing? I know we've seen him play there in season 2019-20, I think. I'm pretty certain he played right side when Tufua was still in the team. Tuipulotu, of course, has been playing left side. That's really been Garrick's spot when he's fit and healthy and when Turbo's fit and healthy. But that sort of will dictate, I think, the value of trading in these guys like Tuipulotu this week, doesn't it? Because Manly are so left side favoured, and Turbo particularly will be going down that side, you'd think.
Yeah, I reckon they'll go Garrick left. I just think, why would they change it from last year, how well it worked? And Tuipulotu can play either side, really. So probably Garrick left. And, his break-even's fair. I think it's 71, Ruben Garrick's break-even, up around there. But other than that, he's going to play around 13. And Manly have some decent fixtures the next 2 weeks. He's good shout to get in this week, maybe.
Josh Schuster, a nice return last week. He came on, he had the, as he does, the ball in one hand, the no-look passes and such. He looks bigger, I think, if that was even possible. He was already a big body on that left side, but seems to have put on a bigger size or a bit of size, and he will be a real force. We talk about them Manly going down that left side, and he's probably a big reason why they do, because they can play short to him or go out the back to Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was a great return last week. He looked good. with the ball in hand and, a day game against the Tigers, it will suit his sort of play, I think. So, and he also, another one, obviously, playing for Manly, he'll play round 13. So I think he'll be a popular trade in the next couple of weeks.
Keep an eye on that one as well. We've got here in the notes as well, the Tigers, they had plenty of chances last week against the Dragons, just couldn't get over the top of the home side in the end. And of course, as I've seen on the 9 News tonight, all eyes, how could we forget this storyline? Hastings up against his old mob, and particularly Daly Cherry Evans the first time. So maybe a bit of fireworks in this one from the 2 number 7s. And Brooks, while he's moved to number 6 the past couple of weeks, I thought he was probably the Tigers' best aside Hastings last week. So there are some brighter days ahead for the West Tigers. We've already mentioned they are long outsiders this week, but if we are playing try scorers, Tommy, as we do, Tommy Turbo, $1.61 favourite here, topsport.com.au. If you're looking for a bit of value, maybe Hamoli Olakawatu, $2.97. Probably not a bad shout given his try-scoring form already this year.
Yeah, he's actually been flying, hasn't he? I forgot about the Jackson Hastings little story here, so that'll actually make the game quite spicy. Who's left centre for Manly? Will it be Kula or Ben Trbojevic?
Probably Kula.
No.
Yeah, left side.
Yeah, I feel like whoever's that position may get maybe a bit of value. They're both around $2.70, so possibly one of those two.
All right, we'll look towards that. We're going to push on here, though, and of course, Saturday afternoon, the Roosters, the Titans go at it. This one at Mackay, so somewhat a neutral venue, back up in Sam Walker territory almost. And he's going to need every bit to find something, Sammy Walker, because he burst onto the scene last year, played some good footy, made plenty of cash on SuperCoach, but now he's probably getting a bit of that second-year syndrome, and the Roosters are feeling that a hell of a lot.
Yeah, I think even at the back end of last year, I think Robbo put him back to the bench a couple of times, and maybe he just knew he was maybe burning out. And the other day, he only got 9 points against the Bulldogs, which most people would have seen as a good fixture for him. So, yeah, he's definitely not in great form, and his goal kicking is pretty ordinary too. I think that's one of the biggest problems for the Roosters. None of them can kick goals. They scored 3 tries the other night, none of them converted. It's going to hurt them in bigger games later in the year.
I'll be honest, I didn't see all of that game, but I would have thought with Adam Kieran playing that he would have taken the tee. Did he have the kicking duties last week? Because generally he doesn't miss them. So,
yeah, Walker missed the first 2, I think, and then Kieran tried to kick the last one, but he also missed. So it wasn't great viewing if you're a Roosters fan.
No, it's going to cost them a big game one day, isn't it? I know they didn't knock him out of the finals last year, but it very well could this year. They just can't turn 4 into 6. Some good news, though, for the Roosters. They need a bit of it. Tupou and Momirovski are back. Of course, Tupou was suspended and Momirovski illness last week. So some troops coming back there. And the big news, obviously, for the Titans is Fafita's out for up to a month. You've got here he's a sell given, straight trade. Well, sorry, I've got here in the notes. Let me take that back. He is a sell, you'd think, given the fact he's out for a month and then the origin period. But I'm going to ask the question. If you're going straight, so not playing dual positions, not trading Tungo up and bringing in a CTW. If you are selling Fafita straight for a second row option, who is the next best at this point, do you think?
Oh, there's 2 that were in my mind. I still haven't completely decided. One is Talakai. If you don't have him yet, I don't have him yet. A lot of people do, but Fafita is one of those players with a high ceiling. If you wanted to replace him with a like for like, Talakai is probably the closest thing. But then if you want to look at the buy rounds, maybe Josh Schuster from the previous game, if he can go to the lengths that we expect he might be able to, he could be one, and you'd save some money doing that as well.
Speaking of second-year syndrome with Sammy Walker, maybe the same for Toby Sexton. I know he didn't have the full season last year, but he's come in and struggled, and obviously they've moved Brimo back to 1. Somehow Campbell can't get a run, and we sort of get that as well with Campbell, don't we? Like, he came in, he just looks small still. Campbell still gets bullied in tackles, and it's just not what they need, given the fact that their forwards, even origin forwards, are not firing really, even besides maybe Tino Somaliawi.
Yeah, their whole team just isn't really firing. I don't think they were better against Penrith last week, but yeah, Dave Fafita's a big out. As much as he's maligned, he's still a very important player to their side, so not having him hurts. And yeah, Sexton, even his goal kicking has gone backwards, like you say, and he's struggling to get any points. You look at their reserves, Jaden Campbell, Jermaine Asako, Philip Sami. There's a lot of NRL experience on that reserve list. So
yep.
It's pretty competitive for spots, but players like Greg Marzu, he's probably the best player at the moment. He's been flying.
I think I said to you the day they signed Asako, I said I'd love to see him at 6. It's almost getting to that point. Will Smith, he could do a job, yes. We know he's got that utility value, but I mean, they're losing games anyway. Why not give Asako a run? I think he has the makings of what could be a good 6. Besides that, Roosters $1.30 favourites. They're expected to win despite how bad they've been, really. 2 shock losses. Consecutive defeats, first to the Dragons on Anzac Day and then to the Dogs last week, as we say. Titans $3.50, maybe a bit of value there. The line 9.5, $1.90 each of 2 there. So how are we playing this one, Tommy?
Keeping your money in your pocket for this game, I think. I look at the Roosters team and I get excited again, but I can't do it again. I can't put any more money on this team until they show something. So no bet for me.
Maybe we should have learned that very early against the Newcastle Knights in round 1. If you are having a try scorer play though, Tupou obviously the favourite. He always is, much like Alex Johnston. Wherever they're on that left side, they do start favourites invariably. $1.84 for Tupou. Suwali, his wing partner, $1.97. And James Tedesco, you've said already, probably been their best player in the last couple of weeks. $2.20 anytime for the Titans. Greg Marju, that man, $2.39. Marju, I looked at his price today and his break even. He could be a real pod play here. The Titans, they do play round 13 from memory. So he could be an option. We know he gets through his base work if we are going maybe from a Taylan May, Will Penasini, some of these guys who are on the way out. Marshu could be one. When he does find a try, he's invariably upwards of 80 points. When he doesn't, he still scores around 45, 50. Not bad for a centre wing option.
Yeah, I did look at him too. And I watch him playing every week and I think, wow, he's so good to watch. But when he doesn't score, it's not great. He has 5 scores under 45. I know that's pretty much standard for a CTW, but yeah, I'm not jumping to him, but I do agree he's worth consideration.
Yeah, maybe Marju, just one of those players that looks good, passes the eye test, as we often say here, breaks tackles, but yeah, okay, maybe I didn't realise how dependent he is on a try. Tommy, we've already spoken of the odds and try scorers and such, but just give me a straight tip because, this game looks an easy one on paper, but maybe not so much given the Roosters' form the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, you'd have to be with the Roosters, but yeah, they've burned you too many times so far this year, so just watch and hope, I think.
All right, we're going to do things a little bit differently this week. We're going to take a short break. On the other side, we'll wrap up the remaining 3 games of round 9.
Having a bet on sport this week? Top this.
Whether you're into cricket and curling or golf and greyhounds, Top Sport will let you on for plenty. And with literally hundreds of markets from your own backyard to the international stage, Top Sport has you well covered. So if you want to get the top odds every time, bet with Top Sport.
Top that. Download the app today. Top Sport. Feel the excitement.
Don't let the game play you. Stay in control. Gamble responsibly.
Welcome back. SuperCoach365 podcast, proudly brought to you in season 2022, once again by topsport.com.au. You can get on, check out all of the odds. You'll get us. You can sign up if you're not already a customer via the link in our Instagram bio. Click that. Tristan and the team will look after you. Speaking of top odds and odds coming in, what about this team? The North Queensland Cowboys started odds on or just about favourites to win. I say win in inverted commas, the wooden spoon to start the year. I think they were about $3.50 favourites. Now they're just about be a good thing to make the top 8, you think. They come up against the Newcastle Knights this week, back at their North Queensland Stadium up in Townsville. $1.15 favourites, the Cowboys. The Knights, $5.50 outsiders.
Yeah, not odds we thought we'd see for this game if we went back a few weeks, but they've been playing well, the Cowboys, but that win to beat Parramatta by 31 points, that's really a statement from them. They're going really good. Ruben Cotter named in the team this week. He always comes on and starts anyway, so it's not much of a difference. Last week, 75 points in base stats alone, which is just the hit-ups and tackles, which is just, I've never seen a number like that for base stats alone, so he's absolutely flying, and you'd think he had Origin written all over him. Scotty Drinkwater, minus 20 break even here. He's nearly 600k, but he plays round 13, and with that low break even, he might be worth some consideration.
Yeah, we've had a couple of questions in the week building up to the podcast, and I'm sure there's plenty more. Speaking of Drinkwater, because suddenly he's just shot into calculation, someone we didn't really consider even to start the year, but given the way he's playing, dual position, plays 13 as you say there, there's plenty to like about Drinky, and important to remember, he was tipped as the man to replace Billy Slater if not for a torn pec in a preseason in, I think it was 2019, he very well could be on a career trajectory like Ryan Papenhuyzen. So he has the makings of a good footy player and all the pedigree of it as well.
Yeah, and he's keeping an origin player out of fullback in the hammer. So obviously Peyton's like what he's seeing, and yeah, he's going absolutely great guns. Now, I know you're a huge Newcastle Knights fan, and you're a fan of their work this year, but Tex Hoy and Phoenix Crossland in the halves, that just screams danger, and to drop Jake Clifford's a little bit harsh.
I know they got plenty of injuries, so I can forgive them for that, and Gagai obviously doesn't help them, and Barnett, the send-off, Fitzgibbon's been injured. But this is what we spoke about, what I could see in the Knights squad back in January. They were very, very thin. They lost Brayley in the preseason. They let Mitchell Pearce go. They don't have points. We said that. They don't have points. They've kicked 2 penalty goals the past 2 weeks. They just don't have anything, really. And I don't think Hoy and Croston are the answer, personally. I know they've probably had good junior careers coming through the SG ball and the flag system up there, but whole different ball game this, the NRL. So I think it just goes from bad to worse before it gets any better for the Newcastle Knights. And their run up until round 13, I know they play some easier teams and maybe some fixtures they would have looked at in the preseason. I thought, hey, well, they're winnable. But now it's just, they could be 2-10 heading into Origin.
Yeah, and you look at this team, and like you say, that they haven't scored a try for 2 weeks. I think there was a few weeks prior they were held scoreless against Cronulla. They're just not scoring points. Where their points come from this week, the Cowboys are a great defensive side this year, so they could easily be held almost scoreless again. And the line's 16, like that seems big for this fixture, but when you think about it, I don't see how the Knights really score more than 1 or 2 tries at most.
Yeah, it's hard because the answer that anyone will say, well, it has to be Ponga. And, I mean, he's just not $1 million fullback for mine. Like, the money, the value you'd get out of... I mean, you're here now at Melbourne, they can't afford to pay Munster $1 million. I mean, he's probably 3 times the player that Ponga will ever be. He's got the resume to prove it anyway. Just on the Knights, I can't bag them all out. I thought David Klemmer was a shining light in a bad team last week. Got through plenty of work, and he had to. They had, I think it was 13 minutes before they touched the ball. He probably made 15-plus tackles in that time. He even put in a kick, which was comical, really, in the second half, and sort of summed up where the Knights were. Their spine was just so disconnected and looked uninterested, really, by the time they went that far behind.
Yeah, it definitely has unravelled pretty quickly, but Clemmer has been standing up, and you have to say the other prop there, Daniel Saifiti, hasn't. So maybe Clemmer's looking for a little Origin rebirth, perhaps.
Yep, he's probably one of those ones in line. I think we had him in our extended squad last week, maybe coincidentally in jersey number 24, maybe. I don't know. We could happily go back and look at the tapes. Doesn't matter. But no, Clemmer, an Origin player. He's been there a couple of times in New South Wales. I don't think he'd do a bad job if Freddie called upon him this year. Try scorers, as we always do. What are you liking here? The favourite, Kyle Felt, coming off a hat-trick last week. Could figure in the money. Scotty Drinkwater, $2.10. Maybe slightly unders. For mine, Valentine Holmes, $2.25. That's a bet for mine because while he's playing in the centres, maybe not his preferred position, he's just hands on the ball, he's involved, and I can see him going over for a try this weekend.
Yeah, I'd be with you there. He's been playing really, really good footy. Probably hasn't been translating to SuperCoach scores as much as I thought it would be, but he's going really well, and you'd have to think he's a decent chance to cross the stripe.
Righto, let's leave that one there. Cowboys by plenty, both of our tips. That one there, and I'll just say the Knights into wooden spoon favourites. So if you got on early, topsport.com.au, or wherever you have a bet, responsibly, of course.
We're going to have no Knights fans left on this podcast soon, mate. You're throwing them all away.
I'm just telling the truth. Anyway, let's move on. The Knights, we'll leave them there. The Storm and the Dragons, speaking of big winners last week over the Knights. Storm, 50 points. They might be eyeing off a similar scoreline here because they start $1.05 favourites. The Dragons, $10 outsiders, topsport.com.au. The line, 22.5. I think that's a similar figure to what went off against the Knights last week, and that wasn't even close. So I'd still confidently back the Storm at the minus here.
Well, the good thing about Melbourne is they don't have an off week. They just put teams to the sword. They're absolute bullies. You know, if the team's bad, you'll know it. They'll put 70 points on them or 50 points on them. It's quite amazing. Xavier Coates, you said here, minus 69 break even. That's probably the lowest we've seen all year. He's just flying. Every time he gets the ball, he's pretty much scoring. I I can't get to him personally, but I can see why he's very attractive to get to, and another great fixture this week for him.
Sort of similar in that mould to Stags, round 3, round 4-ish. If you held him, you just had to hold because you knew he had this in him. If you got rid of him, you probably couldn't blame you at the time, but now you look back and you think, why didn't I keep him? Because he's got this ceiling, 3 tries. I think he scored back-to-back hat-tricks, or at least, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but he scored multiple tries in past weeks. He will play Origin, so that's something to consider, but I mean, given his high ceiling, what we've seen, he could go 3 weeks in a row of scoring 2+ tries, I think, in this one.
Yeah, the only other negative I would say for him, it may not be a negative, but after this week, they do have the Panthers, then the Cowboys, then Manly. So it's tricky 3 weeks there. So maybe he won't have as much joy as he has had the past 3. But still, look, he's an ominous prospect if you don't have him. Jack Bird is named. Will he or won't he play? I think it's quite important because he's a decent component of their attack.
Yeah, and he shores up their defence as well. I mean, we know he's that bigger body, sort of 5'8". He's played in the back row already this season. You could put him anywhere, really, Jack Bird. Rugby league cliche, but he is just a footy player. It doesn't matter what number's on his back. He probably plays the same, whether it's 8, 10, 1, or 24. Jack Bird. Will he or won't he play? I don't know. I mean, I saw in the Dragons training photos last week, he didn't train. So maybe he's just given it a week's rest. We saw this with Brandon Smith to start the year, didn't we? What looked a 6 weeks injury, he was back after 1 week off. So Bird owners, both Classic and Draft, probably hoping that that's the case this week.
Yeah, for sure. Pretty big watch this space. Melbourne, I dug out a little bit of a stat. It's not that hard to dig out, but the last 5 weeks, they're averaging 45.6 points a game. That's just unbelievable. They're putting bad teams away.
Yep.
And I've said for most of the year the Dragons are a bad team, but they're starting to prove me wrong. So can they get within the line here, which is 22.5?
Maybe if you're not playing the line, which you probably should if you do like the Storm scoring 45 points. But if you want to play around that, first to score 40 points. So if you think they can keep that average above 40, $3 for Storm to score 40 points. Pappenhausen, he left his goal-kicking boots in Melbourne after that big win. I think he kicked probably 5 from 8. So that 50 they scored last week, maybe even less than that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. He missed plenty of goals anyway, is what I'm trying to say. That scoreline of 50 could have been upwards of that. We've got here in the run sheet as well, Paps the Unicorn. How did he find 30-plus points in recounts last week? Because I think you and I both captained him. After vicing Cleary, we thought Paps could go huge. Didn't look to be the case, and then we're pleasantly surprised Sunday night, Monday morning when Paps is over 100.
Yeah, well, I didn't watch a lot of this game, so I can't really comment. But from what I was seeing and what people were saying, he wasn't doing a lot. Like, he was playing well, but he wasn't involved in a lot of their tries directly. He didn't score any. So to see, I think there was 2 updates on Sunday night to get him up to 107. I also captained him, so I was happy as well, but it was a bit of a surprise. Any try scorers here? I guess Coates is the obvious. $1.57 though. It's pretty hard to bet there. Of the top 15 try scorers in this market, 13 of them are Melbourne Storm. So it tells you how dominant the market's expecting this to be. But I think maybe the Dragons can at least keep it a little bit closer than what it has been recently.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably playing the value here if I'm betting the try scorers. So you're probably looking at even Jerome Hughes or Harry Grant, upwards of $3. They seem to score more often than 1 in 3. At least they have the past couple of weeks anyway. And even I just think of the way Ben Hunt scored last week. That doesn't even make sense. Let's move on. But no, Storm by plenty, I think, in this one. I just think that they go on. You've said here 45 points per game. They're scoring. It's going to be hard for the Dragons to defend. As good as they have been, maybe they've surprised you and I. This is a different kettle of fish, the competition heavyweights.
Yeah, it is. And you'd think they will just be focusing solely on their defense this week because the Storm's attack is just unbelievable. We saw how lethal it's been the past 2 weeks, and they'll have to be at their absolute best, Saints.
Righto, let's move on. Last game of the round, this one, Sunday afternoon footy. We mentioned Ryan Pappenhausen at length there. He'll be a popular captain option, you'd think, and given the Sharks fixture and the way that Nico Hines has played already to start this year, so too will the Sharks halfback be. But they'll have to be improved here, the Sharks, won't they? Because what they dished up against the Broncos wasn't them. Good news in terms of the team sheets, though. Dale Finucane, one of their inspirational leaders, he's back in jersey number 13.
He's a big in for sure, and they've got a star-studded bench this week, really, when you have the names of Cam McInnes and Wade Graham both there. That's starting in most other teams. So their side does look good on paper, and the Warriors, they're 4-4, 4 wins, 4 losses after 8 rounds, but I've never seen a team play worse for 4 wins. I don't think they've played well once this year.
Yep, and I think they've won a couple of those by 1 point, a couple of golden point wins. So they're getting it done in the end. The back end of games, and John Johnson, no small part in that. But like you say, there's some scrappy wins. They're going to have to be much improved if they're going to compete with the Sharks here. Also, you mentioned some big ins for the Sharks, but DWZ's back for the Warriors, and also for their team list, just looking at it here, Katoa's set to start in the second row option as well. So I think he was semi-relevant classic option to start the year. You might have even owned him at 1 point, but for those still holding on, a little bit of a boost.
Yeah, and I think this game, it just screams points, a bit like the Manly game on Saturday afternoon, another Sunday afternoon game here, the Sharks at home, good weather expected. Players like Hines and Talakai, I think they'll be licking their lips against struggling Warriors. I don't currently own either Talakai or Hines, so I might have to do something about that.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough watch if you don't. Now, Devil's Advocate, as good as the Sharks have been, and what they're getting all the praises and such, just want to ask the question. They were pretty poor last week away to Brisbane. Are the Sharks legit? Are they going to be a top 8? Are they a top 4 team? Currently in the top 4, but I just want to go through some of their results again up until round 8. So round 1, they lost to Canberra. Obviously, that form doesn't stack up too well. Round 2, narrow win, last-minute win over the Eels. Round 3, they pumped the Dragons. Again, a wet night down there in Wollongong. They had all the going. Of course, Jaden Su'A sin-binned early in that one, and then all the points came. Round 4, they beat the Knights 18-0. Okay, that's probably a fair result. Round 5, they pumped the Tigers. Again, the Tigers are down the bottom end of the ladder. Round 6, they get beaten convincingly by the Storm, 16 points, a loss in Melbourne. Round 7, they beat a battered Manly side without Tom Trbojevic, only by 12. And then they lose to Brisbane. So yet to really claim a massive scalp. And the one time they did have to face up against a top 4 team, they lost. So are the Sharks legit? Is it time to just rein it in a little bit on Craig Fitzgibbon's team and Nicho Hynes and everything that comes with it?
Maybe, until they do beat a big gun, probably is a bit early to start talking them up for top 4. But in terms of SuperCoach, I still think we have to treat them like one of the best teams, because like the next 3 weeks, Warriors, Raiders, Titans, I don't know how they keep getting these easy games, the Sharks, but it's pretty attractive. So yeah, I wouldn't change how you're playing in SuperCoach, but maybe long-term, perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, have a look at their extended run, and maybe, not that you're trading out the Sharks, but maybe just pick your moments if and when you are going to trade some of these guys in. I think Sione Katoa, maybe Britt Nakora, maybe even Wade Graham himself becomes relevant around $330,000 at a point. The Sharks expected to score points this week. The over-under 42.5, so expecting, and the over is in fact the favoured way there. They are giving up 13.5 with topsport.com.au, and again, that is the favoured way, $1.85 the minus, $1.95 the plus. You mentioned Talakai and Hines there, 2 popular players in the try scorers markets. Talakai, $2.09 anytime try scorer. Maybe at a bit of value for Nicho. We know he loves playing at home. $3.35 anytime try scorer. That's probably a bet for mine.
Yeah, I like a lot of the Sharks players here. I think we saw how the Warriors capitulated a couple of weeks ago against Melbourne when the going got tough, and I think the game will be tough here on a Sunday afternoon at the Shark Park. I think they'll win by plenty.
Just before we move on, speaking of captaincy options, Nicho Hynes, and we'll do all this in our captain's call tomorrow night, Instagram, or Wednesday night if you're listening to this on Wednesday morning. At SuperCoach365, we do it every week. It's one of the most popular posts we do. Nicho Hynes, I think he's been there probably 7 weeks out of 8 to this point. Maybe even 8 out of 8. We'll have to check that. But playing at home, I have this feeling that he has gone 100 plus in 3 or 4 games, or at least 90 upwards. So he does love playing at home. Expect points and here goal kicking, and if it's a sunny afternoon at Shark Park, that place is going to be rocking. So Nicho Hynes will be a popular pick this week.
Absolutely, and obviously, the game prior Ryan Pappenhausen. He's been the superstar of the past couple of weeks along with Nathan Cleary, but a home game against the Dragons, similar to Hines, it just bodes really well. So your Sunday, once again, is going to be full of points.
Let's talk about the captains now before we move on to our team updates. We've already mentioned two popular picks there in Pappenhausen and Hines. The only thing to watch with those two is if you are vicing Pappenhausen, just be mindful of who you're actually going to captain. I don't know if there'd be many Sharks or Warriors players out there, particularly if Viliami Valea does play for the Warriors, which he is named to. Andrew Fafita may be one at the front row, or a Franklin Pele maybe if you're holding one of these cheapies not playing. But there are not going to be many options, non-playing reserves that you can sub in at the last minute, last game of the round, the Sharks over the Warriors. So one thing to be mindful of. That being the case, Tommy, do we go the vice captaincy earlier in the week, Nathan Cleary, in a difficult fixture against the Eels perhaps?
Yeah, I'm personally going to go with VC on Cleary. I just think he's been too good. The other day, he didn't do a lot. I know he did score, but Penrith were pretty ordinary. He still got 87. Back at home where they're invincible, you'd have to think he'll probably go big again. It really doesn't matter who they play. Any out-of-the-box ones this week from you?
I'm just looking at fixtures here, and that's all you can do. I agree with you, probably the vice-captaincy on Cleary. I just think it gets too difficult Sunday afternoon. You don't want to get caught trying to get in one of these players, and if Andrew Fafita is an 18th man or plays, then you're in all sorts. So Cleary, for mine, would have to be the vice-captain. Perhaps the obvious one, if you are playing away from the big two, which I suggest you don't, but playing fixtures, the Cowboys up against the Knights, Drinkwater or Holmes, maybe even Tom Dearden, thinking of round 13. So some of these guys might be trade-ins. You probably prefer Drinkwater and Holmes to Dearden, but the vice-captaincy option all the same. I think there probably is a little bit of value there in the Cowboys if you are trading them in this week.
Yeah, I don't hate it, and it could be a great pod play. If Drinkwater turned up and you're happy to loop that or something, it would be excellent for you. The only one I'd say other than that is James Tedesco again against the Titans. He's going really well. The Roosters aren't, but he's still playing great footy and he's probably good for another 100. So he's maybe a pod player for a captaincy.
We're going to put the Origin chat on hold this week, Tommy. We spoke a little bit of it last week, and important that we did because plenty of the trades this week are going to fuel our decisions in the coming weeks, isn't it? So we're going to put the Origin chat on hold. We're going to pick it up in the next couple of weeks with round 13 in mind. Speaking of, let's do our trading places segment. We do it now, and you're going to kick us off this week, Tommy. Run us through your two trades this week.
Yep, two trades at the moment. And I stress at the moment because depending on what happens with Penrith, I might go and use my second boost of the year. But for now, David Fafita is out, of course, with the injury. He's going to play Origin as well, so I probably won't get him back for a while if I do at all. Going to go to Talakai. I mentioned before, Fafita's a high-ceiling player. I want to try and replace him with a high-ceiling player if I can, and there's no one better at the moment than Talakai with the Sharks having 3 great fixtures coming up, so I want to go to him. And my other trade, I've stressed about this all week. I'm still not completely sold on it, but I think Will Penasini's time might be up. He's going okay, but he's only averaging, 50. It's not setting the world on fire. He's not making that much money anymore. Eels have a tricky run the next month, so he's out. In comes Christian Tuipulotu, someone who I hadn't even heard of at the start of the year. Now he's in my classic team, but he's got a negative break-even of 44 or something like that. And he'll probably be playing around 13, you'd have to think. So they're my trades for now, but there could be more action if Brian To'o is in and Taylan May is out.
Okay, one to watch. Again, our final team list every week, 7 p.m. Thursday night on our Instagram, right across the socials as well, SuperCoach365. We say it every week. Tommy, just on this, if I'm reading this right, you've got 25 trades remaining, over $170,000 in the bank, but importantly, correct me here, you've still got 4 trade boosts remaining. That's right.
Yes, I'm just thinking how important it's going to be in a couple of key rounds before the buys, maybe if I need some emergency players just to get in that week, and I'm probably going to need 3 trades those weeks. So I'm just trying to keep them there if I can. But like I said, I might end up using that boost later in the week. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, one to keep an eye on there. No, I can't argue with the trades. The only thing I will say there, though, and it was a question that we asked ourselves in the run sheet, wasn't it? What side does Tuipulotu play on? Because I think if his right side, and we've seen it even with Jason Saab, a more established first grader, he just doesn't get enough ball. So That could be one to watch out for there at Manly. For me, of course, these trades on your screen on your YouTube. Will Penasini, I agree with you. I think his time's up. I think the Eels have a difficult run coming up. We said this with Mitchell Moses last week. I think they had the Cowboys last week, the Panthers this week. I can't remember top of my head, but I think the Storm may be on the horizon again soon. They don't play round 13, so a couple of things we need to consider there. Penasini out for mine. Trading him down here to Isaiah Tass, getting the number 3 shirt this week. Important for mine. I think that he's done enough maybe to hold his spot. Tane Milne wasn't great when he was in the team even. Both have an error in their game. Both have penalties in their game, but maybe some upside there at the price with Tass, the cheapy price. And then speaking of time's up, Taylan May. Look, even if he does play this week, break even of, I think it's upwards of 70. They have a tough game this week against Para. I can't see many points. Then they have the Storm in Magic Round. Again, I can't see many points. So soon enough and sure enough, all of the money he's made, it's going to be, working against him here. Brian To'o on the horizon. I don't know. I just think there's too many negatives there hanging around Taylan May. Even the fact he plays round 13, I'd rather not be involved in it at all. To Tuipulotu as well. So similar trades there for mine. 25 trades remaining, only the 3 trade boosts for mine. But the remaining salary, importantly, $564,000. $564,000 and $400 to go with it. Just a little bit of play money there on the side. So upwards of $500K in the bank. Look, it may look silly, but I'm just building this bank because all of my focus is on round 17 onwards.
Well, that money's going to come into play big time for you. It's going to be a great asset to have, and I'm quite envious of the amount you have sitting there. And look, I do agree with Taylan May, and like I said, I still might get rid of him before Friday's game, but it's just the round 13, the lure of that game against the Bulldogs. I feel like no matter what, he will play that round because the Panthers will have players in Origin. So, yeah, that's the only thing making me keep him for now, but I agree. He probably is a sell other than that.
Panthers, as good as they have been, I think they've won 8 in a row. They're undefeated. When was the last time they had a loss? Because they won through the final. Actually, they lost to Souths first week of the finals last year. I think that's their last loss. They've got the Eels this week, as we know. The Storm in Magic Round, as we know. Round 11, then they have the Roosters at the Cricket Ground. Again, the Roosters, maybe not the Roosters of old, but still, they're away to the one of the top 4 contenders on paper at least. Then they go back home to play the Cowboys, a good defensive outfit. And then it's round 13. So Taylan May.
I agree.
You could have lost it
all.
Yeah,
fixture proof. From a fixtures point of view, I 100% agree. Like, he's not going big, and his break-even's already 70s. He might not even be in the team for these weeks also.
Yeah.
But the only thing is, I'm just scared to trade out someone that's, is going to be there for round 13, because I'm trying to build my team for round 13 and I'm almost detracting from him. So it's tough. I've been stressing about it all week and I'm still none the wiser as to what to do, to be honest.
Yeah. Before we wrap this up, let's get to some of our listeners' questions because there are plenty of them. And, of course, we do love it every week. You can get this on our Instagram. We're a little bit late today putting this up, but it hasn't stopped. Geez, look at the inbox here, Tommy. It's just flooded today. We'll start at the bottom. Adam Blundell, one of the favourites. Great to have you on board, Adam. He loves the show. He says, is it Tom Trbojevic time? Maybe not quite yet. He's getting close, and that's sort of where my head's at with that $564,000. Come round 16, 17, 18, you're going to be wanting these big names. So you're going to have some bank, and you're going to need that cash to get to Tommy. But is it time just yet?
No, I don't think so. I think the break-even's still pretty high, and he's only first game back from an injury. So not yet, but I agree with you. Come round 18 after Origin, you'd be looking straight at him.
Next question here, and just going back to Tommy. Break even 163 this week against the Tigers. This time last year, he probably eats that up. But we have some question marks on the way that they play this year and the scoring and such. So no, not yet on Tommy. Tommy C 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 8 asks us. Probably a popular question, but is Payne Haas a sell? You sold him a couple of weeks ago, Tommy, and I think I've answered the question there in trading places. No, I'm not selling Payne Haas this week because I'm happy to give him 1 week, maybe 2. Max King, Josh King, I'm happy to just cop their 45s, 50s, and I'll wear that on the chin if it means I can keep Payne Haas.
Were you looking to get rid of him before Origin, though?
Maybe closer, but not this week. I'm just happy to hold on because, they play 10, 11, 12. So we've still got 3 games, all things going to plan. Payne Haas back as soon as next week, hopefully. So I'm not in a rush to sell Payne Haas.
Oh, fair call. Next one here. I'll take the reins for a second, mate. Do you think it is a good time to buy Teddy? Smith's King. I've already got Teddy. I know you don't, Bud. What are you thinking here?
Now, I looked at him, and if I could have went maybe Steph Crichton straight, I may have done that, or even Taylan May with a bit of coin in the bank down to Teddy. But I couldn't do that. So for mine, no. And I guess given I've already been burned a couple of times by the Roosters this year, I don't want to go back to the wells. So happy to watch on with Teddy. My, I guess 3 of the 4 halfback, fullback slots are filled with guns. So happy to leave Teddy to the side.
Yeah, I'll let you take back over the hosting, mate. That was my one attempt for the night.
One and done. Alex Brigo, again, loves the show. Alex, great to have you listening, and hopefully we can give you some advice here. Drink water as a pod. What has already touched on that? Yes or no? Drink water as a pod, given their run, price, break even, all things considered.
I like it, but it's just that he's fullback and 5'8". So most people have guns in that spot. You're going to have to get rid of someone really good to get him in. So I don't know. It's tricky.
Yeah, and if I am trading one of those guys out, which I probably wouldn't, it could be Ilias to drink water at 5'8", maybe, but otherwise, no. I'm not selling a gun to get him drink. As good as he has been, job security is still a question as well. Alex also asks, is Adam Elliott a trap? Tommy, I haven't seen a lot of Adam Elliott or the Raiders really in the past couple of weeks. What are you doing with the Raiders, and what are you doing with Adam Elliott?
Well, he was a complete nobody on SuperCoach until last week, but then he started at hooker and he's named there again. He got 104 last week. I think he was the second highest scorer of the weekend, which it would have been 1,000,000 to 1 for that to happen. Okay. But I think he's a trap. I wouldn't go to him. You don't know what Ricky Stewart's going to do 1 week to the next, so I don't think his job security is great.
Yeah, and the whole benching and starting, it's Starling, it just doesn't fill me with much confidence, so we're saying yes to a trap there. Liam Shampney, May and Tago, are they keepers? I think you may have kept Tago last week, traded him. I don't know. You've sold him.
I've got both still, but they're both on the chopping block. Tago's been going poorly, but they both play around 13, so do you keep him? I don't know.
Friend of the show, Blake's Brushworks, he pointed this out. Go and watch the team song, the Panthers against the Titans last week. Taylan May, Isaac Tungo, front and centre in the camera. They didn't want a bar of it. Their heads were already back on the Jetstar plane home to Kingsford Smith. They weren't there. They had no part in that team song. Go watch it. It's interesting viewing. Are they keepers? No. Tago maybe, dual position, but Taylan May, I'm happy to say goodbye this week. Liam Shampney again. Guacamole selected for Origin. Of course, meaning Hamoli Olakawatu. Is he eligible?
I don't know. Maybe for the Blues. I'm not sure, but they've got a lot of second rowers, New South Wales. But having said that, Tarek Sims did play last year, and you'd probably rather have Olakawatu, so maybe.
Maybe, but I mean, between Liam Martin, Cameron Murray, Tyson Frizzell,
Crichton,
there's probably a couple in front of Gawker, but no, happy to see his name in the conversation because he is playing some good footy. Bosco Harris, should I get rid of Moses for Hughes due to Moses only getting 8? Oh, I got rid of Moses last week. I knew his time was up. Would you go to Hughes? They don't play 13, but a Kiwi, so he will be there 17 importantly, and probably someone you could keep beyond that for the rest of the year.
Yeah, he could be a keeper, and he's scoring, despite Melbourne going massive, his scoring has been just okay. There's been a few scores there below 50, but yeah, I probably agree with you about Moses. You pulled the right rein there, getting rid of him last week, and the Eels have a tough run, so yeah, maybe look to get rid of Mitch.
One more here. Actually, we'll do a couple more. Tate Johnston, still on Isaac Tungo. Is he at his peak? A low base scores the last few weeks. I think I'd prefer Tago Tungo to May, obviously, given his dual position, his base is high, even though May's base is high, but job security for Isaac Tungo looks locked on. And playing inside To'o, if it is down that left side as it was in round 1, it didn't really take away from Isaac Tungo's base. He was pretty good round 1 against Manly, I feel.
Yeah, he got 71 that night, but the last 4 weeks, his highest score is just 53. So look, I don't know what's going on with him. His scoring has dissipated a fair bit. So, but the round 13, as I keep saying, he's going to be there. So that is a big reason to keep him.
Carts 3185. DCE as an option, I have Cleary and I have Hines at fullback. So DCE, I know it's getting close to Origin time, but playing good footy. Now Turbo's back, certainly going to help his cause. Would you look at DCE or not, given that the Origin period's just around the corner?
Yeah, it's a left field one. Scoring very consistently. Every score, just looking at it now, every score this year is between 60 and 80. So he doesn't go badly ever, but he hasn't gone massive. But like you say, Turbo back, and they've got the Tigers and the Broncos next 2 weeks. So there's some good signs there for him.
I think we put up a stat in the preseason, didn't we, about how his average without Turbo was about, I want to say about 49, and with it was closer to 90. So if he's scoring 80 without Turbo, maybe he does become an option in the next couple of weeks, DCE. 2 more here. Not underscore Howie asks, who is the better buy, Tamalolo or Cameron Murray? I already have IPAP, Talakai and Haas. So all of that considered, Jason Tamalolo or Cam Murray?
Tamalolo, just because he definitely plays round 13.
Righto, this last one, not so much a question as it is a bold prediction. Mikey underscore NASA underscore Chur. Ronaldo for 130. Of course, the Sharks Sunday afternoon footy against the Warriors. Last time they played this similar sort of fixture was against the West Tigers. Sunday afternoon footy, Ronaldo could have easily had 2 or 3 tries.
Ronaldo, Talakai, Hines, they could all go massive on Sunday. I have to agree with him.
Rightio, he's hoping for that, especially if you are captaining Nico Hines. Again, we'll settle our captains later in the week. You can find that on our Instagram at SuperCoach365. That's where you'll find us today, tomorrow, 365 days a year. Tommy Hudson, thanks for your time. Round 9, we're looking forward to it, and plenty of good footy. The big names, they're coming back.
Absolutely. Big week coming up and a lot of planning ahead of the buys and Origin. So great time of the year.
As we say, stay tuned to our socials because that's where you'll get our final teams, our best captains calls, of course, all of that and any late breaking team news in the countdown to kickoff. Thursday night footy, the Rabbitohs and the Broncos. We can't wait. First game of 8 this weekend. We look forward to them all. Ryan and Tommy, SuperCoach365. Enjoy your round 9 footy.